who currently serves as investment officer at Emerging Markets Investment Advisors, a Singapore-registered private equity fund committed to building innovative, transparent, and sustainable businesses in Southeast Asia. Cheryl was previously an investment associate with Khazanah Nasional, Malaysia's sovereign wealth fund, where she was actively involved in direct investments across Southeast Asia and in supporting the fund's portfolio companies. She has a BSc Honours in Accounting and Finance from Warwick Business School. Warwick is a very cool place. And passed all 3 levels of her CFA exams. Welcome.
Thanks.
We then have Sok Ho Hong, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the Cambodian Securities Exchange, the CSX, a public enterprise with principal investors including the Cambodian government and the Korea Exchange. The goal of the CSX is to offer an investor-friendly environment for all market participants and become the main channel of financing for Cambodia. Before joining the CSX, Sok Ho Ong lectured at the Royal University of Law and Economics before becoming assistant to the Secretary of State. Welcome. Next, we have Nicky Enriquez, is the Chief People Officer at Royal Group of Companies. Established as a strategic investment holding company, the Royal Group maintains interests in a wide range of industries, including telecommunications, media, banking, insurance, resorts, education, property, training, and agriculture. So a lot. And is recognized as the country's most dynamic and diversified business conglomerate. As the HR leader, Nicky has deep experience in the setup of global people best practices for ICT, telecommunications, and BPO industries. Welcome, Nicky. Next to Nicky, we have Manu Rajan, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Wing, Cambodia's leading mobile banking service provider. Launched in 2009, Wing is committed to providing financial inclusion to the unbanked and underbanked, allowing every Cambodian access to services including local money transfers, bill payments, and phone top-ups, including online shopping and QR payments, as well as instant international money transfer. Manu has spent over 2 decades at the forefront of brand and advertising, analytics, telecom operations, portfolio management, and consumer finance and fintech. Welcome, Manu. And finally, but by no means least, we have Francois Dutoit, who is Chief Digital Officer at Mong Group, one of the largest diversified groups in Cambodia, with businesses ranging from property development, beer and beverages, to manufacturing and distribution of building materials, concrete, and cement. Whilst trained in commerce, Francois has over 20 years' experience in management, IT, and digital. Before becoming CDO at Mong, he held many high-profile positions with large multinationals ranging from management consultant, general manager, IT director, and regional CIO. He has deep experience in leading and executing projects ranging from organizational restructuring, business optimization, IT infrastructure, business applications, and digital solutions. So perhaps we can start with a quick round of applause for our panelists and welcome them to the stage. Okay, so as we've kind of heard from Joseph and others today, there are some very interesting insights that are coming out of the marketplace. We'll reference some of those in this panel discussion, but I'd like to keep this as a free-flowing conversation, so let's see where this conversation takes us. So, Francois, perhaps I can start with you. Cheryl, if you could pass the microphone down. 90% of CEOs believe their organizations don't have the right skills to achieve their goals, yet the same leaders believe that they will achieve above sector growth over the coming years. With an obvious need to fill the skills gap, how ready do you think the Cambodian labor force is to meet the growing needs of your and other organizations? And what should our audience be thinking about as they build plans for 2021 and beyond?
The Cambodian labor force per se may not be that ready for digital transformation, but that does not mean that we don't have to look at digital transformation or consider it.
Do you want to
Hello?
try
Hello?
mine? Oh, we working?
Huh?
I think
Hello?
it's working.
Hello?
You can try mine.
Okay.
I'll just shout.
Well, I can speak loud enough. Yeah, I think Cambodia is not unique. Well, I know Cambodia is not unique in the problem that it doesn't have the necessary digital skills. Let's face it, digital transformation, digitalization is something new. But that does not mean that we should step back and not do it. We should still pursue that ambition. And if that means that we have to bring in a few people from outside to help us upskill our local labor force to achieve the necessary skills, then we have to do that. But undoubtedly, today where we are, I cannot find the necessary skills or all the necessary skills that I need to recruit. So I am also, and that came out in some of the survey, I'm also looking externally to service providers, so some of them which are here present today, to help me in the digital transformation journey. So the point is, the fact that we don't have the skills locally does not stop us and should definitely not stop us from pursuing digital transformation. If we stop that journey of digital transformation, we're going to get left behind. And then it's going to be very difficult to catch up. So we have to start now with what we have, and we're bringing the necessary skills to upskill what we have.
That's fantastic, thank you. And Nicky, I want to bring you in on the same question if I can. So touching on what Francois just said, finding folks in the local market is perhaps challenging at times. And he mentioned bringing in people from outside to train and upskill local talent. From your perspective, on the same question, how ready do you think the Cambodian marketplace? No. How ready do you think the Cambodian marketplace is? And what are some of the things that you at World Group are doing to address some of these challenges and opportunities?
I have a slightly different opinion.
Amazing.
From Francois.
There's the value of this.
Yeah. Cambodia has digital skills, but we don't have enough. Okay. I was quite surprised actually to find some, and our partners here, DataU, has been very, very critical to our journey in Royal Group in building or enhancing the build of digital capability within our organization. As far as can we achieve the business goals we've set for ourselves with the quantity of digital skills in Cambodia, I have to say, no, we need more, like I said. Obviously, Cambodia is not in the top world ranking digital ready countries in the world. I believe Singapore is number one this year with Switzerland and another country. But Cambodia is ambitious. I do believe that there's an opportunity to get there with everybody's help. And because all the businesses are quite aggressive in the way that they set the targets, it's only a matter of time before we have an explosion of skills here. But it is through the efforts of companies like us and yours, Mekong Big Data, DataU, and all others who may want to venture into it, because it is a real need, and there is a huge opportunity for this. And like Francois said, we must start now, or maybe we should have started yesterday, but it's not too late. Let's start now, like right now.
Perfect, I love that. And so Cheryl, if I can bring you in. As Nicky mentioned, and as we heard from some of the presentations, the focus of the study was the CEO's perspective. What are leaders thinking, how are they planning their forward future strategies. And so from what I know of the EMIA, you have a very sponsor-led approach to investing. Could you share with us some of your thoughts on leadership teams that are actively investing in digital strategies and how that plays into your assessment of their business and them as an investable opportunity?
Okay, so yes, you're right. EMI pursue a sponsor-led strategy. So what that means is technically we find management that are good and solid in our opinion, and then we back them, their vision, their mission. So we back, obviously as an investment firm, we back them with money, we back them with whatever support that we can do. In terms of that, so management assessment plays a very important role in terms of our investment evaluation. But I would say that having management that actively pursue digital strategy is not a necessity per se, but it says a lot and it gives a lot of plus to the management team itself, because having that shows that the management is really open to change. That's one, and also shows that the management would like to pursue growth and improve their efficiency continuously. So this gives a management a plus in terms of their personality, but I wouldn't say that we actively pursue specific companies that has that strategy.
That's super interesting. And so just kind of touching up and following on that, what we saw, Cambodia as it stands is in a slightly strange microcosm when it comes to the impacts of things like COVID, as we've seen, and as we discussed in kind of the welcoming part. CEOs who are able to adapt and have these strategies are much more able to get over these undulating waves and these black swan moments, I suppose, as you might call them, with this global pandemic. Does anybody on the panel have any kind of particular experience to share, perhaps, on things that they have done which they did not realize was setting them up for kind of a stronger position in the world we are in today? So efforts they may have taken previously as part of their digital strategies, which have now set them up to consequently be in a much better position than some of their counterparts or competitors in the marketplace because of the early investments they've done. So perhaps Nicky, Manu, I'm looking at you two, and you are quite digital organizations.
So we started the digital transformation journey for Cambodia 12 years ago. Then it hit us like a bolt of lightning that people are not ready for it. Right? So then we had to adapt to the requirements of the people and change or make some changes into this whole digital journey that we had envisaged for financial services using mobile phones for the Cambodian people. So we brought in the agent banking model. Then anybody who is not comfortable doing a digital transaction can then go to an agent and hand over the money, and then the agent does the digital transaction themselves. It's still a digital journey, but it is aided or assisted by another human being. We learned in the process that there are three things that are important. One is trust. You have to have trust in the bank because you're talking about money. Second thing is self-confidence. And I guess that's where we took this long as Cambodia to reach the levels of other developed countries, right? When you look at the Cambodian population, more than 50% is less than 25 years of age. And we noticed that they're more self-confident in doing a transaction themselves. But when you look at the other 50% who are slightly older, you will find that they're not very confident. They still would prefer to go have an interaction with the human being and have that digital journey assisted or aided with the help of a human being. The third most important is use cases. You have to keep giving them reasons to use, right? Now, coming back to your question, so since that was the business that we were in, the whole ecosystem that we had created internally and externally is digital because there are less manual interventions other than the agent or a person walking to an agent. Everything else is digital. So when COVID or the early warning signs of COVID came to Cambodia, we were in a position, there were no drastic changes that we had to take care of other than address the fear and panic among people, including the agents and the customers and the employees. The maybe of course the ways of working, remotely working, etc. So we were almost there and we were almost ready because we were working even then with people across the world who were not physically here. So that was not a big cultural change. So we were almost ready there. So there were no drastic changes that we had to make. I know, long answer to a very simple question, but we didn't have to make any drastic changes that helped us because we were already there.
Thank you so much. And so, kind of, Hong Soko, if I can come to you. So one of the key focuses when setting up the CSX, as I kind of read your CEO's statement, was to equip it with high standard IT systems and the manpower to run it. Could you share any insights or learnings you discovered when implementing both your transformational people and technology plans and how that played out for CSX in particular?
Yeah, CSX, our stock exchange, is IT based since the very beginning. With everything, well, not everything, but most of the things are automated and are handled by the IT systems. So luckily for, as she said that we have digital skill to handle all those systems, but not enough. We're still recruiting almost every day. Because the exchange is small, we cannot afford to pay high salaries, so it's difficult to retain good stuff and everything. We introduced a mobile trading system 2 years ago, and we are just good in time for COVID-19. And it seems that we are not greatly affected by the crisis. For the last 4 months, we have listing of 2 stocks and 3 bonds, so which is the best year for CSX. So yeah, but the crisis did affect it a little bit because we could not hold in-person events like gatherings or road shows and everything. Yeah, but the business is still going on. Yes, I think that's all I have to say. Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's wonderful. Nicky, if I can jump over to you real quick. And so coming back to some of the results in our survey, we found that 57% of respondents to the CEO survey said their biggest challenges when it came to digital transformation were centered around people. And so we've spoken already about some of the strategies that you guys have taken. I guess the question I want to ask is, when it comes to addressing the human side of digital transformation, how does that play into your future investment strategies? When we're thinking about what we're going to do over the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, what role does the people side of digital transformation play into your investment thesis and the way you approach these projects?
I can't really imagine digital transformation without people. It just doesn't fit my equation. Okay, so yes, I can understand why CEOs are saying it's a large chunk of the work. What we have done in Royal Group, Wing, Cellcard, and all the rest of the ICT division, investments in technology, obviously. But on the people side is making sure that there is awareness, willingness, and ability to use and leverage on the technology to create innovations that serves our customers internally and outside. Yeah. And then on the quantity of people that can actually help us with digital transformation, we started pre-COVID speaking with Mekong Big Data yourselves to try to experiment. So it's an investment in experimentation on how to build capability on specifically data science. Okay, because we needed that to understand how we would connect better with our customers and how we could potentially make efficient our investments in marketing, advertising, and so on, the cost of sales acquisition. We are still in the experiment, but we're very happy midway to have people who qualified. So basically, DataU pre-qualified the Cambodian talents for us, okay, saving me time and everybody else in the group. They pre-qualified this really amazing Cambodian talents who are able to accelerate the learning and certification in all of the skill sets required to perform the job. And I think we were certainly successful in defining what needs to happen and what skills need to be in place before they are in the job. So September is the first month that how many people, I think about close to 12 people pre-qualified by DataU, and they are now distributed or deployed in several of our business units. First week feedback, very happy. One of the marketing directors came to me to say, we had an issue a couple of days ago, just on the day that the students, came in, and they were able to help with the analysis of very specific data sets. And marketing was able to report back up to us on the following day, first hour in the morning, to explain why there was such a trend in revenue and sales acquisition. So the first experiment, I believe, is good, worthwhile, and I do recommend to other organizations here in the audience. It's something that we must take a risk on, because there's a lot the royal government is wanting to do for the country in terms of digital transformation, and it will not happen with just the rectangular framework agreement. All of us actors in the economy, we have to participate. And the fact that there are agencies or institutions that are willing to help build this for us, the clients, I think is great.
That's amazing. Francois, if I can come to you. And so Nicky's just explained to us, some of the really positive things that have come out of the digital transformation efforts that they're making over the Royal Group. From your deep kind of background and knowledge as a chief digital officer, what would you say was the number one thing that most organizations fail to address when it comes to digital transformation? And what are some of the things that they might do to avoid those pitfalls?
I would not say only what they have failed at, but are still failing at most organizations.
Please, yes, that'd be amazing. Feed us with this insight.
Before I answer your question, let me just respond to Nicky for
Please.
a minute here. Nicky, I did not say there is no digital skills in Cambodia. I'm saying there's digital skills at different levels. We've got digitization, we've got digitalization, we've got digital transformation, which all happens at different levels. I've got great digital teams where I am, so I don't want to take away from that. Okay, just if you can put your question to me
Sure,
again.
Absolutely. So what would you say is the number 1, 2, or 3 things?
Okay. The biggest problem is to change people's mindset. Yeah. We are all working in companies that have been established for a long time. There are staff that worked in those companies for a long time. We have to change the way they think. We have to get them to think digital. Today, when I have conversations with people about digital, they think very conventional. And they think digitization. Digitization is not digitalization. That's not digital transformation. Business process automation is much more digitization. We have to move to a higher level of thinking. We have to think, how can we improve our customer interaction, our customer experience? We want to have frictionless customer touch points. which is externally focused. To me, digitalization and digital transformation has much more of an external focus than it has an internal focus. And to get people to think like that, that's the biggest challenge that we have, that change management component of digitalization and digital transformation.
That was a wonderful answer. Thank you. Cheryl, I'm going to bring it to you, and I can give you my mic if you like. Touching on some of the points that Francois mentioned, and there was some I've been scribbling notes furiously, Francois, thank you. Some of the touch points he came across was thinking digital, and business and process automation. Looking at your portfolio and some of the companies you guys have invested in, can you think of any examples where digital transformation strategies have led to kind of clear competitive advantage, new opportunities where businesses are applying process automation and thinking in new and digital kind of ways?
We recently invested in a dairy farm, whereby we brought in an interesting Israeli technology, where it's customized management system on a dairy farm. So what it does is that each cow has a pedometer on their body,
I love
and
it.
it has
Fitbits for cows.
it's cows, and then it sends vitals on a 24-hour basis to the management system, to a tracker, and then on an app. So we constantly can be alarmed of the health of each of the cows, if there's any problem and everything. But what's happiness level, what they eat, did they not eat, did they drink?
Did they get a step count in for today?
So we have like names for each cows and things like this.
Love that.
And that's very interesting. But more importantly is that we have an AI algorithm that sort of accumulate all this data and make it into a farm decision. So do I feed more? Do I feed less? What do I feed? And things like this. It improves the cow milk yield, and obviously, bring in some competitive advantage to this company.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, wow. That's incredible. And so I love the idea of essentially using Fitbits for cows to generate revenue upside, right? It's incredible. And so this is really fascinating. And so Cambodia, that's not a set of technologies you might typically kind of associate with a Cambodian organization, right? So when it comes to farming or manufacturing or agriculture, typically we think of very traditional ways of doing things. And so Hong Sok, if I can come to you, given that Cambodia has traditionally, kind of heavily relied on manufacturing and very traditional ways of doing things. As technologies evolve and as businesses adopt new digital ways of thinking and business and process automation like you guys are doing over at the CSX, what do you think this means for the kind of the future of listed businesses? What do you think it means for Cambodia in a broader context as businesses move towards more automation, as they move towards more digitization? What are some of the things you're hoping to see come across your ticker tape over the coming years?
Well, that's not easy. That's not very easy to predict what will come in the future anyway. But anyway, with the arrival of COVID-19, we saw that companies will need to adapt in order to survive, and there may be events that are not predictable. So I mean, you need to be ready for changes. You need to adopt technologies and okay.
Maybe a health passport business, for listing, right? To clear us so we can go around freely.
So you can finally start traveling again.
Okay.
Board the plane freely.
Yeah. Why not? All kind of innovations that you can think of, and that may help. And frankly, I've been expecting this kind of businesses to come on board and listed on my exchange.
So is anybody out there with any health passports? You got a direct line over here. Okay, Manu, perhaps I can bring you in then, kind of staying with this theme of kind of automation. And so again, looking at our survey, 80% of respondents think that automation will have a positive impact on jobs in Cambodia. How do you see the workplace, the workforce, and the combined output, be it milk yield or whatever else it might be? How do you see that changing in the face of automation? AI, digitization. Can you give any specific examples, perhaps from your work at Wing or anything you've heard about in the ecosystem in Cambodia?
Yeah. So before I go to Wing, I guess we cannot compare Cambodia with the rest of the world because our growth story is maybe 2 decades, maybe 25 years old, correct? Our biggest companies are also not more than 20, 25 years old. And we have always been a purpose-led economy. So our companies have also been purpose-led. Maybe that is one of the reasons why our CEOs are concerned in the survey, are concerned about COVID. They're concerned about not being digital, but at the same time, very optimistic about growing their business because we have always been more purpose-led than process-led. To do this digital transformation, you have to be a little more process-oriented. And the process orientation also involves people. And the resistance always then comes from people. And then it goes back to culture, right? Then you have to overhaul your operations, right? Then you also you have done all these things. Now you've digitized your business. Everything works smoothly. There is AI, which is making products relevant. Everything is extremely user-friendly. And then you have to have the digital adoption or the other side of the whole process, which is other side of the coin, which is customers, who will have to be comfortable using it, right? So it's not an easy transformation. But if you're looking internally, if it is an inward-looking digital transformation policy that we are looking at, it is rather easy, relatively easy. Because you're talking about employees, you're talking about your business processes, you're overhauling your operations. But then you may have to do a little bit of changes like how we did to bring in a manual intervention still with the end consumer so that your business still goes on, so that the purpose is met, right? So the way I see the digital transformation changing things is maybe in the next 5 years, by increasing the relevance of those interactions, still human interactions, relevance of those interactions that are taking place non-digitally with the help of digital. So today when I walk into an agent, coming back to Wing and to give a specific Wing example, today when I walk into an agent's place, maybe the agent maybe not even looks at me to understand who I am, then carries out the transaction based on instruction. Maybe tomorrow when the customer comes in front of the agent, maybe the agent also has a list of cross-sell products with him, or maybe some unresolved grievance that he can quickly resolve, correct? So maybe the relevance of the interaction or the user-friendliness of the interaction, customer orientation of the interaction maybe changes, but it is still a human interface which is carrying it out. Maybe 10 years down the lane, when this less than 25-year-olds become adults and young adults, maybe that time it will all happen digitally. So 5 years, I guess it is more inward-looking, and 10 years it will become more outward-looking.
That's fascinating. So almost computer-driven human interactions, if that makes sense. I mean, I could be asking questions all night long. I mean, this is a fascinating panel, but I'm conscious that there may be many questions out from our audience, and so I want to kind of see if anybody in the audience has any questions for anybody on our panel, either in the context of digital transformation or perhaps on anything in particular that anyone has said today. So are there any questions from the audience that we can take? Yes, Joseph.
It's come up a few times and in the study, but Francois, Manu and Nicky have all mentioned it as well. It's this idea of mindsets, innovation. So if we need to foster innovation through mindset shift, kind of what would be your number one piece of advice where to start in your organizations? How do we foster those mindsets that are going to come and challenge the status quo, think of new things, bring fresh ideas? And I think in the Cambodian context, we have to tackle, I don't know if you'd agree, but we have to tackle the fear of speaking out as part of that. Do you have any advice for all of us in the room about where we can start to tackle that issue?
Okay, I don't have the perfect formula. I can only share what we've done. Hiring transformational leaders obviously is one way. Yeah, we can't move the business forward with extremely conservative and traditional approaches. So that's one. And then the other is in setting up the digital transformation strategy. We invested a lot of time in putting together organizational level change management plan. And a lot of it is communication, whether it's in images, text, whatever, song and dance, whatever approach we can use to be able to get the message across why we are doing it this way, what's in it for them, the actors, the process owners, essentially the internal customers, which would be the employees. Yeah. And part of the change management also are rewards. Do get recognized for their contribution. And in this process, we're able to sustain the perpetual state of change in digital transformation.
Yeah, Nicky, I want to add to what you said, and I agree with you. It's all about communication, and communication is core to change management, of course. But what I want to add is education. When I say education, I don't mean people going to school. I mean educating the internal workforce in the company about what digital means, what it means to digitize, what it means to digitalize, what it means to digitally transform. Because everybody, they've heard these buzzwords, but they don't necessarily understand them. And part of getting them to buy into the concept of the transformation and the change management is to explain to them and educate them on what it is and what it can be, what can be achieved if we pursue this journey. So it's very important from my perspective to educate the internal audience, because that's also a large part where the new idea generation, the innovation is going to come from. You know, it's not the CDOs, the CEOs. We operate at a level away from the customer to a large extent. We have to educate the level that works directly with the customer. As I said, I'm very externally focused in my digital approach. So I want to talk to the person at grassroots level who interacts with my customer, and I want him to tell me what I should do to digitalize my customer journey. And for him to be able to give me that answer, I have to first of all explain to him what is digital, what can I do with digital, what digital technologies are available. You cannot expect an answer from somebody if you haven't first given them that understanding of what you're asking them to answer you.
Okay, any more questions from the audience? No? Oh, yep. Thank you so much.
Okay, so a lot of things are being spoke about, skill set, right? People, training. So digital transformation is very wide, right? So in order for it to be successful, we need the skill set, trainings, processes, systems. So I felt one thing that is pretty much very lack of in terms of talking about it, right, is digital platforms and infrastructure. So what are those gaps? Anyone, right? Identify what are those gaps and what will be your wish list?
Anybody want to take that? platforms and infrastructure. And so with a lot of talk about people, a lot of talk about the softer side of digital transformation. What about the harder, more technical infrastructure and kind of organizational stuff? Are there any advice or any platforms that have worked in particular for any of the organizations here?
Thank you, EasyCom, for a very reliable infrastructure. So during COVID period, we were able to do seamlessly high quality interviews and workshops on Microsoft virtual meetings. Okay, so we weren't put in a situation where we had to compromise on what we needed to deliver. We just basically moved from in-person workshops to virtual, virtually organized events and carried out. But it wouldn't have been possible without high-speed fiber backing, cell cards, 4G, super fast speed. Okay. And because most of our employees are all over Cambodia and their families are also latched onto the network, they needed to be able to pay via Wing, their services, and all those again were running on very high quality, very reliable infrastructure brought to Cambodia by Royal Group.
I think it was a round of applause on that one. That was a wonderful answer. Okay, yeah, please.
Yeah, infrastructure is the backbone for digital transformation, and but for Cambodia, from my personal view, I still think that it is not very. I mean, there is huge improvement for the last few years, but there's still question on the reliability of the connectivity in certain area, or even in Phnom Penh. Sometimes the exchange we experience some low and some high and low about connectivity and everything. And second thing about the cost, and I understand that because the scale is not big enough, so you need to charge quite higher cost in order to cover your overhead and everything. But in order to move forward faster about digital transformation, I think you need to work on those two fronts. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm conscious of time. We got time for one more question. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next section in the evening before we get over to the wine and cheese, which I know you're all eager to get to. So there's no more questions. Can you join me with a round of applause for our excellent panelists? Thank you kindly. They'll all be available afterwards during a networking session if you want to ask any questions in a less shouty, formal kind of way. So thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. If you could join your seats, we'll move on with the rest of the evening. Thank you so much.